All right. Greetings and welcome back once again. This is Amuna, and you don't know already. I pray everybody is doing well. I'm about to do a mic check on my side so that I can make sure everything is everything before I go ahead and get started. Mic check, mic check. Just give me 1 second here. We're going to get into this. All right, everything is good. So, welcome to the conversation. And, I already know that topics like this could hit hard. So, I'm going to say it from the gate because the first episode, for whatever reason, my mic was muted and you couldn't hear me. This story is littered with trauma. There are going to be many triggers. I have not committed to reading the entirety of the story. I am just reading the 4 chapters available on Google. So I have put the link, I'm going to put the link in the box once again. And for those who are interested, they can read it at their own discretion. Now, I want to shout out to everybody who always who gives their feedback. I understand, this is my preface before I go in, that certain topics can be heavier than others. And I also understand that our relationship to the discussion may determine how we react. Okay. And that is also okay. So if something is triggering in someone else's narrative and you may not yet be ready to process it, and I'm going to stop before I read here, emotions have to have a place to go. They're like water. They're supposed to flow. And it's a human experience, and not just only human, animals have emotions too, to react to things that we hear, see, or experience. So I got some feedback on something that I read in the last chapter about this woman, which happens to be Tyrese's mother, and how she was assaulted as a little girl. She was violated, according to her narrative, by an old man. Okay. And as I read it, I was not only apprehensive, but considered whether or not I needed to read it. And the reason I chose, because in other spaces, you may hear me be like when I was reading Color Purple, I'm like, nah, I'm good. Or like I said, when I was watching Monique do, what's the name of that movie? Precious. I was also good, right? So you, the individual, have to know. But that doesn't mean that we should, because we may not be in a space. This is just my thoughts on the matter. To process something, that we should stop someone else's right to express their experience. In the melanated community, whether it be in America, the Caribbean, on the continent, wherever, I've noticed that there isn't much space held for people to actually own and process uh, their experiences, right? It's either minimalized as, oh, that happened to them too, oh, you're not the only one, because we did not get the tools. And counseling is only now becoming the in thing. Counseling is only now becoming something that is not as taboo as it used to be. There is this kind of old school, new school thought on how far and how much we should leave up to our imaginations. My stance on that is I've read a lot of uncomfortable things on this channel. And usually the numbers go down when I do such things. But I feel that it's necessary not to trauma dump or not to shock necessarily how low can you go, but to show that the process of healing deals with the ability to be 100% truthful about what someone is experiencing or what someone has experienced or what we have experienced. If we cannot put a name to the pain, And being that this man made an album called Beautiful Pain, you could almost guess that it's not going to be a banger in there. You're not going to be moving and jumping and doing all of these things, right? Again, there are many sides to Muna. You know what I mean? I could be joking and jovial and laughing, but I felt led to have this conversation about this topic, and so to whosoever will find value and needed it, that's who it's for. Like all the medicine is not for everybody, right? And there's some people like this young woman. I mean, not young woman. I mean, she rest in peace at this point, this elder, that her pain was so uh, complex and her pain was so traumatic that she internalized it because she felt as if there wasn't a place or space being held for her. And not only felt as if, the way in which she is narrating the story, there wasn't. So, one of my concerns even was when I was reading chapter one. And chapter one, to me, I had to ask the question, is one traumatic experience worse than the other? Because she describes how, and up to the age of 5, all of the bruises left on her body was from the maternal figure in her life. Okay. And all of the pain that she experienced emotionally, mental, that's where it's coming from. So now, when the pain is inflicted by a stranger, by somebody who was on the outside, does that make it any better or worse? And that's one thing that unfortunately people do, is like try to compare. It's like the pain Olympics. We got a far way to go, people. But you know what I mean? I'm not new to this conversation, and I do understand that sometimes when people push back, or when I push back, or it's not intended to be, you know what I mean, to make anybody feel any kind of way. For those who just welcome, I had to just kind of put that preface out there, because you may see me in the comment section just pushing back. It's not a counseling session, you know what I mean? We are on YouTube, but I have done things in this capacity where I've held space for people who have had trauma. I've been the facilitator, call it whatever you want, having to deal with these conversations, not with one person or two people, but with group of people, right? This kind of group therapy sessions that you see me doing on YouTube, I have been doing for the greater part of a decade. And I understand that when stuff bubbles up, it gets spicy. You get me? So I chose to read that, and I'm going to choose to read chapter 3 today. So if you may be triggered, so far we have physical abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse. If you may be triggered and it may be too heavy, then maybe read the book or not. You know what I mean? Or maybe go through your own experiences, or those who are within your family. I'll say one more thing. Nope, I'm going to say two more things before I start reading. One of the things I find is that mm, the issue with not naming it is not only just not holding space for the person, it is lessening the impact, lessening the crime, lessening the offense, so that when justice is not served, so that when the offender, who may be in the family or the community, shows up at the picnic, shows up at the holiday, shows up at the baby shower, the people that are surrounding do not feel less than for not having brought this person to justice, because everybody gets to leave the crime or the offense up to their imagination. That's problematic, because that allows people to sweep it under the rug and continue on with life as though you didn't just do, or you were not accused of what you were accused of, right? The second part of that is, I was asked whether or not this level of transparency, not mine at this point, it's this woman, Priscilla's level of transparency, is it needed for the healing process? And I would say this to that. Let's say, for instance, I've used this in times past, this example. There's something called a wound care doctor, right? Or wound care nurse, or you go to a wound care facility. Depending on the wound, is going to determine the treatment. The wound determines the treatment. Somebody gets cut, it's going to be very different if they got burnt. It's going to be very different if they broke a limb. It's going to be very different. And each one of those things requires something different. Now, if someone got burnt, Yes, they're going to have to take the bandage off. They're going to have to clean the wound thoroughly. They're going to have to be exposed to all of the pus and all of the uncomfortable bodily fluids and the pain sensation. Absolutely. Because if they cover it over, it's going to fester. And if it festers, it's going to worsen. So in many situations, the only thing is that maybe it may not be done in such a public space, but I'm just reading a book that was written, right, at my own discretion. You feel me? In the same way you could listen at your own discretion. But in order to, this is take home tips, in order to really heal whatever may be deep within you. And you say, Amuna, I didn't know you was an expert on healing. Yes, read the bio. I'm going deep into this, not for the purposes of, lording it over the people, but for my own purposes. I thought for my own application, for my own life, I needed to study the process of healing and emotions and pain and all of this stuff. Now, there was a book, actually, one of the first books I wrote was Solonomics, and that, just like my email, solonomics@gmail.com. Now, if you came on the tail end of me looking at family history as a way means of healing that energetic space of your bloodline, maybe you only know me in that capacity. If you came and you saw me talking about Bob Marley, maybe you only knew me in that capacity. So let me reintroduce myself. You know, yeah, there are multifacets to me, and some of the things you may not understand, and I appreciate the conversation and the willingness to engage in that matter. So without further ado, with the long preface, sometimes you read in a book, you're like, my goodness, author, is this preface long? That was long, but I felt it necessary. Let's go in and recap the last time we left off. So the last time we left off, Miss Priscilla took us through her tumultuous childhood, the fact that her father was abusive, her mother was alcoholic. The father left the mother and the children, right? I think it was like 6 of them at the time. Now, the mother is going here to there because she doesn't have financial stability. She is also abusive. According to Priscilla, a lot of her anger and rage is being taken out on the 5-year-old, the 9-year-old, the 11-year-old. And here we are now, they're at the friend's house, the mother's friend, loosely quoted friend's house. And she had just been violated by this old nasty man from the community. So let's go. This is chapter 3. Chapter 3. So hopefully you heard that. It was sufficient. Any questions or comments, feel free to put it in the box. I'm going to put the link also for you to come up early so I don't have to put it late. You understand? All right. Here we go. Chapter 3 or 3. Let me stop being Jamaican. Chapter 3. Okay. 2 years passed, and the secret that she had been keeping inside still burdened her. So I just told you what the secret was. After she was violated, she did not feel that she could tell her moms, so she didn't tell anyone. And let me just make sure, a lot of young girls and boys do this because there's in a safe space for them to share. It says, she tried not to think about it, but the memories continued to haunt her. She often stole liquor from mother, hoping it would help her forget. So she saw how her mother coped with issues, and so she allowed her environment to inform her pain management. You know what I mean? And so she saw that her mother is drinking and it kind of makes her tune out. And so she decided, as this very young girl, 9, 11 years old, that she is going to tune out through becoming what I don't even think she signed up to be like she's going to be an alcoholic, but that's essentially what she becomes. But she told us what she hoped, that it would help her to forget. She says that she would mix any liquor with Kool-Aid or juice or whatever else she could find so she wouldn't find out. She just wanted to forget. And usually in these situations, a child would need therapy. The family would need therapy. They would need all of these processes, not to say it would make her forget, but all of these processes to help her process the experience she did not have. And a lot of people in the community, far and wide, use this type of self-soothing methods to, why are you always high? Why was such and such always drunk? Why was such and such always gambling? It was the mechanisms by which people use to try to kind of, again, like she said, forget, but it don't work. It don't work. It don't work. It says later that year, they moved to a house near Hardmont Tracks on the other side of St. Louis. Margaret, which is her older sister, had moved out a few months earlier with her boyfriend. So Margaret, her boyfriend, hold on, I drink water. Margaret did it with boyfriend. The mother of boyfriend. Okay? Everybody I do what them I do, and nobody now pay attention to the them. Says, two of her brothers were in juvenile detention. See there? Nobody paying attention. And was at home, she was at home as usual, babysitting the rest of her siblings. Mhm. After a while, she started sneaking boy into the house because nobody know that. Who going to stop her? Right? So after a while, she was sneaking man. I mean, mother was never there anyway. So she didn't worry much about getting caught. So children they look for barriers or not barriers. They look for not barriers. I'm walling today. Children look for security. They, even though they buck against the system, they need security. So in her case, there's no security, right? There are no boundaries. I said barriers, I meant boundaries. And so she's giving us her thought. Well, she ain't here anyway, so she's gonna do what she want to do. She's gonna do what she see the older people in her community, in her home doing, right? But basically whatever they want to do. There were times, however, that she did get caught. Mother would beat her, but she kept doing it. Because at this point, it says she'd call her out of her name, or she would call her a whore and told her that she was never going to amount to anything. But she didn't care. So mother thought she was over here giving a TED talk and giving her, all of this emotional abuse and carrying on the most way. But you're not giving her the love and care and attention that she needs. So at this time, she says, she had heard all that before and had become immune to her insults. And sometimes there are women of all nationalities that think that speaking to your young daughter in this way is like gonna get them to stop doing whatever they're doing. That's not it. That's not where it's at, man. And besides, she was wrong. The boys, she said, loved her. They seemed to be the only people that did, besides her brother Marcus. She loved the attention they gave, and she did anything to keep it. She would do anything to keep it. And I like the way that she progresses with this, because she doesn't just tell us what she does. She gives us a mind into why she's doing it, right? And this is gold right here as it relates to how things develop. She's telling you exactly why she didn't care. Not that she didn't care what her mother was saying, why she didn't care. She's telling you what she thought the boys did, and then she's telling you exactly how it translated to her. Attention. She was lacking attention at home. She got attention outside, and we the people do it often. You conflate the issue and you say attention is love, but not all attention is love. Sometimes attention is the precursor to exploitation. Oh, I see something I can get and go my way. It doesn't mean the person loves you. It just means they're giving you attention at this time because you have something they want. Anywho, walking home from school one day, she ran into a boy named Randall Jackson. Now, I think at this point, the author of the book is making it an autobiographical novel. So I think at this point, to some degree, the names are changed. I'll tell you why later. But so anyway, she runs into Randall Jackson. Pookie was what he later told her he liked to be called. I know that was back in the day, because you can't. Pookie and Ray Ray is not what you want to be called in 2024. But Pookie was what he later wanted to be called. He was about 5'10", with dark chocolate black skin and pretty curly jet black hair. He was fine. So we like to think about mothers, foremothers, grandmothers as being these wise elders that we may come to know them as. But at one time, everybody was a child, right? And this is what drew her to Pookie. Pookie's aesthetic. Okay, he was really popular at Solden High School too. She had seen him around their school, but never tried to talk to him. Every time she saw him, he was always with some girl. Besides, she was a freshman and he was 2 years older than her and a junior. She didn't think he knew her or noticed her, but he did. So Pookie was the girl named Sugar, and see one girl I watch Pookie, but you know what I mean? She kind of reserved a little bit. So Pookie, I got you. Ain't your name Priscilla? He asked as he ran to catch up with her. She had crossed over the railroad tracks and was nearing the turn to her street. She said she stopped and turned around, surprised at who it was. You know, back in the day, you feel me? She's already crushing on Pookie. You know, that's her crush. Her heart is skipping beats. She's all nervous and just like surprised that this guy is talking to you. Boy, back in the day, me, I tell you. Anyway, how did you know my name? She said. I know all the ladies' names. Well, Pookie was a Rolodex, especially the fan ones, Randolph responded. I looked down at myself. I was wearing, she says, some old hand me downs, clothes, and dirty tennis shoes. Her hair was nappy, although she did try to style it. She knew he had to be kidding if he was referring to her as fine, although she did have a nice figure. So she is like, what in her did you find attractive? Because we could tell at this point that her self esteem wasn't the best, right? So careful how you send your children out in the world, because as we see, it makes them easy prey. They have to know that they're loved. They have to know you have to help build up their self esteem, because if they go outside, they can easily be manipulated by people with not the best intentions. I'm not saying at this point in the story, Pookie doesn't have the best intentions, but let's continue. Whatever, she said, trying not to blush. I'm Randall, but I go by the name Pookie. I know, I said sarcastically. You do? I've seen you around school, she continued. Really? He said, smiling. Do you live around here? Near Haydmont Tracks. Where do you live? She asked. I live near Haydmont Tracks too, on Haydmont Avenue. Really? I live on Wells Avenue. That's around the corner from my house, Pookie said with excitement. Can I walk you home? Now, I have to confirm. That's why I got the book. If this interaction is actually Tyrese's father, once I confirm that, then I'll go into my thoughts on that. But for now, we're going to continue. We are going to continue. Where's this here? So Pookie live around the corner. So we know what happened now, right? So it says here we know Pookie. That's around the corner from my house, Pookie said with excitement. Can I walk you home? Can I walk you home? I looked at him, surprised that he had made that suggestion. Okay. Pookie, I run game now, you know. On the way home, they talked about school and people in the neighborhood. They were both surprised that they had never seen each other walking home before, since they lived so close to each other. Pookie asked why she didn't have any friends, since he had always seen her by herself. Easy Prey as well, Lone Wolf. You see her by herself. You ain't got no friends. Pookie, don't I set you up every Pookie, don't say why, me know your name, me know where you're depend. All right, so we don't know. Does Pookie have great intentions? We shall see. We shall see. Which about me then on? Do. Why she don't have no friends? Where I am? Where am I? Okay. After confessing that he had noticed me at school, I just never took the time to make any. I got too much stuff going on at home, she answered. So she's like, friends, she really don't have no time because, you know what I mean? It's wild. It's real in the field. She says she really liked walking and talking with Pookie on that beautiful sunny afternoon. The sky was clear and the wind blew lightly, just enough to sway the trees and provide the perfect atmosphere. She found out that he liked sports, especially basketball, and he wanted to go into the military after he graduated high school. Pookie was very confident about what his future plans were. She couldn't think of anything she wanted to do after school. She wasn't even sure if she was going to graduate. And the chances are she's in fight or flight. Priscilla's in survival mode. Oftentimes, that's just from today till tomorrow. We're trying to get away from the painful situation. So while Pookie has time to reflect on his future plans, why does man say call him Pookie? She's like, man, I ain't really think about all that. She's just trying to stay alive and away from mom dukes, okay, from mother. Now let's continue. They finally arrived at her house. She felt sad because she was enjoying her time with Pookie and didn't want it to end. So what are you going to do when you get in the house? Pookie asked. Bang, Pookie, no, y'all go too far with this thing. First, you want to know all our business. No, you want to know what she going to do and when she gets in the house. Homework. That's what she's supposed to do, our homework. Or take care of the 102 pitney them that's in the house. Anyway, so no, Pookie, no, I play him game now, because he's the junior and she is the fresh fish. She a freshman. I don't know, she says. I guess what my brothers and sisters are doing and watch TV. Yeah, do you have a phone? Can I call you? Pookie asks. No, we don't have a phone, because this would have been in the 60s. Probably she didn't answer like that. She says she muttered, feeling a little embarrassed. So it was more like, no, we don't have a phone. This was in the 60s, if my calculations are correct. The latter part of the 60s. Okay? Because the mother born, actually, no, I lie. The mother is born 57. So if she's a freshman, this is 57, 67. Yeah, about 1970, them with it, or early 1971. So it says, oh, well, I'll come over in the morning to walk you to school. So Pookie is inserting himself into the girl life. Okay. She smiled as she nodded her head in agreement. We said goodbye to each other, and Pookie headed off down the street. She walked in the house feeling very giddy. So far, no trauma, because, there's a little sunshine sometimes, which is good. So you see me reading it in a little bit of a lighter way. You know what I mean? That evening, she took extra time to try to find something really nice to wear to school the next day. She washed her hair, tried to press it as best she could. She wanted to look nice when Pookie got here in the morning. She did her best to conceal her enthusiasm about Pookie from the rest of the family. Because you already know, they probably going to be like, oh, what's really good with you, sis? This is not the type of family to be smiling. But every time she thought about him, she couldn't help but smile. She couldn't even sleep that night. The anticipation she was experiencing, and all the butterflies fluttered around in her stomach and kept her awake. And this is the connection between our feelings, these very first emotions, the oxytocin, the dopamine, the highs that we feel, and then the way in which those memories get imprinted. And so this is why some memories live in very vivid HD, you know what I mean, in high quality in our minds. It all depends on when we have the memory. Was it the first impression? All of the other things. So because this was such a contrast to what she was used to feeling, she would have had an extra high, right? Because our body is like this own internal drug factory. It releases hormones and chemicals and all of these things that we become addicted to, much like the substances that people become addicted to externally. Internally, like for instance, the dopamine addict become addicted to the adrenaline. They become addicted to the feeling of, adventure seeking, of jumping out a plane, of doing all kind of wild stuff. So they continue to chase these adventures so that they could create this feeling within the body. You know what I mean? Anyway, but that was side note. Let me continue. So I'm just noting that this would be a contrast from what she would be experiencing. And so it may cause her to bond to Pookie more than she would in a normal situation. Anyway, she gone wash her hair and she gone look for clothes for wear. And it goes on to say, she couldn't even sleep. The anticipation she was experiencing, all the butterflies flooding around in her stomach kept her awake. The next morning, just as he said, Pookie came to her house to walk her to school. And by the way, remember the only other male figure she has is her brother. Her older siblings don't really mess with her. Her father has gone. And so now he's going to be like this stand-in of this masculine energy that she needs, right? She felt so special. She had gotten up extra early to get herself together. She put on a pair of blue bell bottom jeans, the one that mother's acquaintances have given her with a printed disco shirt. And she had washed her old Safeway grocery store Snickers with Purex bleach and let them dry in the window, and they looked a lot better. She parted her hair on the side and clamped it slightly with two white barrettes. Remember, she's like a freshman. What is she? 14, 13, 14? It says she was so excited and ready when Pookie got to the house. Today's walk to school was the best walk to school she ever had. I'm telling you about where this memory is about to rank. She's writing this book 20 odd years later. She's in her 40s, if not 50s, and she's reflecting. It's not like she's writing the book in the moment. In reflecting, this is the best walk to school she ever had, right? And that also goes to how both people could be having an experience, but both people remember the experience very differently. Pookie may have had a very different thought and recollection of this moment. So we can't assume that just because both people are having their experience that they remember it the same or it's filed or cataloged the same in the mind. It's not. So anywho, after school, Pookie waited. Yo, Pookie up to something. I think. How many people in the comment section? For those who just welcome join us, how many people drop in the comment section if you think Pookie is up to something? It's given. I got this feeling somebody's watching me. Pookie's up to something. Let me know in the comment section if you think Pookie's up to something. Anywho, so no, Pookie I wait after school. Pookie waited for her at her locker to walk her home. That did it. So she was like, him knowing who I was. Hey, Dr. Charles, welcome to the conversation. It's very nice to see you as well. It's been a minute. And I'm going to open the mic in a second. She was, remember, this was a Fast and Furious, pun intended, right? This is 24 hours later. The fact that Pookie, this is like she's overstimulated. The fact that Pookie knew her name. Now I'm gonna start calling this dude Pookie because now I'm gonna forget what his real name is. Pookie knew her name, okay? Pookie walked her home. You know what I mean? She leveled up her dress code. Pookie showed up the next morning. Pookie is laden on hot. He is front loading this conversation. He is love bombing her. And who is susceptible to love bombing? People who have been injured emotionally, mentally, physically, people who are vulnerable. So in retrospect, Pookie is love bombing. He is laying it on thick. Okay. He's like, girl, don't you know I'm here for you, girl? I mean, so anywho, so let me know if y'all think Pookie is really interested or if he laid it on thick. I'm going to continue. When she came around the corner from her English class and saw him standing at her locker, low-key GPS stalking her. Like, yo, bro, you even know where my locker is? What the backside I go out there, so Pookie? You know, something for do. Anyway, I knew I was special to him. And he was definitely special to me. So she interpreted all of this attention that Pookie was given in 24 hours as being special to him. During her walk home, Pookie asked if she wanted to come to his house to hang out for a while. So he let the medicine seep in. You know what I mean? 24 hours of love bombing. Now he about to go. You want to come over? Can I come over? You want to come over? 24 hours later, Pookie. Okay. Where we at? To hang out for a while. I told him yes, because remember, she already was having interactions before. So they walked to his house. He even, ready for this? The man Pookie even held her hand, not the physical contact. Remember, she was sneaking people into her house, but now, because she's emotionally invested, the holding of the hand, Pookie, why you did it to this young girl? That's what I want to know. Why you do it? So Pookie was an only child. And so when we're going into these conversations, it's good to know the background of who is what, who grew up where. Like I said, how they're going to interpret things is very different. Now, I'm not saying all only childs have a certain disposition, but it increases the chances of an only child having a certain mentality, especially if they're the only child who was doted on, if they're the only child who got had their own space, who the only child, there's a lot of things that come with an only child that when you're interfacing with them, they may not necessarily understand your perspective because they were never exposed to it, right? So alarm bells for me. Pookie's an only child. Pookie was an only child, and he lived alone with his mother, Grace, who was not at home when we got there, because chances are Grace is working, right? Grace is doing what she needs to do. So he hadn't mentioned his father in any of our conversations, so I assumed his parents were divorced or his father was dead. I have some information. Again, I'm waiting on the book. I need to confirm that Pookie is Tyrese's father. I'm inclined to think so because there's a video of Tyrese's father narrating or recounting a similar story. So that whole she thought he was dead because he never mentioned his father. I have some other stuff on that, but we'll get to that after I confirm. Pookie had a really nice house compared to where she was coming from, right? She used to sleep in the closet. So sometimes you think, yo, this is a level up by all accounts. This is level up right here. The furniture was covered with plastic and it looked new. That's old school. That plastic squeaky, hot, sweaty stick to your my grandparents used to have that plastic. I don't know why they anyway. Every bit of furniture and decor was neatly spread out throughout the house. There were pictures of Pookie at different stages of his life everywhere. I thought the house was beautiful, like a palace. So Pookie is well aware his mother's doting on him, don't know where his father is. He is important in her life. He is able to see where he's coming from. He has his own space. Pookie is very different than Priscilla. So here Pookie no. My bedroom is in the basement, Pookie said. Follow me. Like Priscilla, I understand what she's going through, but she's way too trusting. This is the first time you go into Pookie's house and already you about to go to the basement. Don't go to the basement, sis. I followed him through the kitchen and down the stairs. In his room, he had his own television on a stand and a couch. She's noting everything that would have been a standout to her. Again, okay? Everything like, wow. She says, so he had a television, his own room, a stand, a couch. His bed was against the wall, facing the couch, and black and gold beads were hanging from the doorway. It was nice and cozy. Y'all remember them old school beads? If y'all old enough to remember them wooden beads or the beads that's supposed to be the separation and they get stuck on you and they make this clangy noise. But anyway, this is my bedroom. Sorry, this is my room, he said proudly, stretching out his arms. So Pookie was allowed to take up space. Let's just say Pookie's giving a little bit. I mean, some would say spoiled, but a child is supposed to have a space that's theirs and feel comfortable in their home, right? But let's continue. Do you want something to drink? Some water or some Kool-Aid, he asked. Sure, I'll take some Kool-Aid. Pookie, why didn't you ask her that when y'all walked through the kitchen to get to your room? Like that, anyway, Pookie ran upstairs to the kitchen because he was trying to lure her to his den. You understand what I'm saying? He was trying to lure her to his den. Anyway. I stood in the room waiting for him to return and looking around at all his stuff. He had posters of Julius Erving and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar everywhere. Pookie came back down the stairs in a short time with 2 glasses of grape Kool-Aid. Sit down, he said, pointing to the couch. Let's watch TV. Doesn't he just take charge? You know what I mean? Sit down, come over, go, you know what I mean? So she was probably like, okay, somebody cares. He held my hand. No problem, Pookie. I sat down on the couch as he walked over to the television and turned it on. Lost in Space was on, so we sat together watching the show. When the show went off, Pookie leaned over, my goodness, Pookie, and kissed her upon the lips. He startled me, but I kissed him back. He kept kissing and eventually moved over to his bed. Sis, Yo, sis, ninth grade, sis, what is going on? So she laid up with Pookie. Let me drink some water. Mm-mm. From that day forward, she couldn't stay away from Pookie's house. So 24 hours later, by that time, Pookie must have been like, that was easy, right? And from that day forward, she couldn't stay away from Pookie's house because Pookie's house would have been a paradise compared to where she was coming from. Every day after school and on weekends, she was at his house. So she done totally abandoned her brothers and sisters back at the crib. You feel me? When she was being the mother figure, she's like, she's out and she's over Pookie. He had, she said they had sex all the time. Sometimes they would skip school, way to go, and stay home all day while and having sex while his mother was at work. She was in love. So Pookie was like, got him, got him. Got him. She not going to school. Truancy laws is in full effect. You ain't going home. You know what I'm saying? And Mom Dukes is none the wiser. What in the world? So Pookie got sis thinking she was in love. Now, based on the fastness of this timeline, it could have been 2 weeks this was happening. It could have been 1 month. I don't know because her timeline moved really quickly. Okay. Eventually, she met his mother. She was very nice to her. As she suspected, the mother knew what they were doing, but she never said anything about it. Her mother, on the other hand, slapped her and cussed her out for being away from home so much and not being able to babysit. That's what I'm saying. How did you get away from Mother Dearest and, you know what I mean, abdicate your responsibilities as the resident babysitter? And so, she would notice, not because she loved you, but because, what do you think you're doing, ma'am? For those who just joined us, welcome to the conversation. We are on chapter 3. Like I said, this is just a preview of the book available on. I be giving promos for these people's books, but I'm just promoting healing, literacy, and all of those things and open dialogue. So if you want to get the first 3 chapters, the link is right there on Google Books. Let's continue. Which part me they know? So she cock up around a Pookie, yeah, that do the most. She says, but she was in love. She didn't care. That slap didn't feel like nothing. Sis says she was in love. She didn't care what she said or what she did. She wasn't going to stop her from seeing Pookie. She wanted to be with Pookie all the time. Pookie loved me. Or so she thought, right? Does anybody think Pookie loves her? Let me know. Am I bugging? Am I being too cynical? Like, I'm you wilding. You know what I mean? You being too cynical. Pookie did love her. You know what I mean? Why you always got to be projecting? Let me know your thoughts. Let's continue. 2 months into the relationship. Didn't I tell you? Didn't I tell you? Because, when we younger, this feels like a very long time. You know what I mean? 2 months. One day went quick. You know what I mean? So 2 months. It's like they was together for 2 years. You know what I mean? It says, I showed up at Pookie's house unannounced. Okay, trauma warning, trigger warning. I'm trying to tell you, peoples. For those who might be like, I don't know, I don't feel good about what's going to happen, I'm already telling you, I read ahead a little bit. It's not going to be good what's going to happen. So just be warned, okay? Where am I now? So 2 months later into this love session, she showed up at Pookie's house unannounced on a Saturday afternoon. Okay. He was sitting in his living room on the couch talking with his friend, Mike. Miss Grace wasn't at home. She was really ever home. If she wasn't working, she was taking care of her alien mother at her mother's house. She had come over to Pookie's house because she was mad at her mother. So Priscilla is like Pookie's house. Pookie's looked like an arrangement. Pookie's house was the sanctuary, right? So she goes over to Pookie's house because she wanted to get away from Mom Dukes. Moms had hit her brother Lester on the hand with a baton and broke his thumb. Lester had reached for another piece of chicken after mother had told him he couldn't have another piece. So she picked up one of the sisters' baton that was near the kitchen table and hit him on his hand as hard as she could. So I guess Mom Dukes is wild. Lester screamed to high heaven in pain, and mother acted like it didn't even faze her. Showing no remorse, she took him in his hand. But there's a typo. She took him to see if his hand was broken. She wasn't taking him to the hospital. She told him she wasn't taking him to the hospital because it was his fault and that he didn't listen. Next time you'll leave stuff alone when I tell you to, she's yelling at him. She yelled. Lester doubled over in pain. She got mad at her, and after they argued about what she did, Priscilla left and couldn't take any more of her stuff. She needed to see Pookie because Pookie at this point was like a drug. Okay. Pookie always took her mind off her dysfunctional life. Give me 1 second, y'all. Give me 1 second. For those who just joined us, welcome to the discussion. Let me play y'all. I'm going to pause for 2 seconds. Right back. All right, all right. I'm back. Drop some hearts or some books if you can hear me. I am back. I just had to do something really quick. Let's continue. So Pookie was in lust. Yes, indeed, he was. So let me know if you could hear me, and then I'm gonna continue. All right. Let me know if you can hear me. For some reason, I don't hear me. All right. Can I be heard? All right, I could be heard. For some reason, when I play the black arrow music, it mutes out everything. I don't know. This thing is tweaking, but let's continue. So now she pop up unannounced over Pookie's house. Uh, and again, I said this is a trigger warning. Where am I? So the mother nearly broke our son Han. And okay, Pookie let me in the house and introduced me to his friend Mike, who was slouching in the armchair in the living room. I didn't know Mike, although Pookie said he went to our school. I attempted to tell Pookie about what mother had done, but he didn't appear to be interested. I wonder why. Because now Pookie has company, and Pookie don't care. Okay, Pookie don't care. Uh, He disregarded what I was telling him and continued on with his conversation with Mike about last week's basketball game. I sat in the chair next to the couch and daydreamed as the two of them continued to talk as though I wasn't there. I wanted Pookie to tell his friend to leave so we could be alone, but he didn't. I even tried to make eye contact with him, but he wouldn't even look at me. As a matter of fact, he was acting really strange towards me, like he was annoyed with me. Remember before, up until this point, she was in love, right? I love you, you love me. Now he got a little company and he don't know her. All right. It says here, whenever I tried to join in the conversation, he seemed to get irritated with me. He'll cut me off and give me a dirty look. I stopped trying to be included. What, Pookie? What's going on here? You know what I mean? Pookie got up and went in the dining room. He opened the china cabinet and pulled out an unopened bottle of Manischewitz wine. And he came back to the living room and sat the wine on the coffee table. Remember, she already started dibbling and dabbling, so it's not outside of her realm. Let's have a drink, he suggested as he headed for the kitchen to get some glasses. Pookie, nah, no, baby. Pookie poured 3 glasses of wine. We each took a glass to drink. Let's go to the basement. This dude is so suggestive, fam. What is good with him? He's left alone too much because he always got these bright ideas. So know him want she, they boy and him for good on in that basement. Mike and I followed. Pookie sat the bottle of wine on his dresser and lit some incense. Oh, my Pookie too slack. Then he walked over to his record player and put on a Marvin Gaye record. Come on, girl, let's dance, Pookie said as Marvin Gaye sang What's Going On. Do-do. Marvin Gaye is over there singing, and now all of a sudden he see her. Before she had on invisible paint, but now he see her. Pulling her up off the couch by her arms, Pookie put his arms around her, still holding his glass of wine. Started slow grinding on her. In front of the boy, you know, she should have did take a cue and go for a walk, man. And she joined in willingly, feeling special that he would show her off in front of his friend. Mike sat on the couch drinking his glass of wine and watching them dance. Dance with Mike, Pookie asked as he pushed himself away from me or from her. So here comes the trouble now. Dance with Mike, I frowned and said. I don't want to dance with Mike, laughing a little and not taking the situation serious. What? Pookie said. He slapped her. Remember, she's already exposed to all of this abuse. So now this safe place, the honeymoon period has ended. And this safe place, she's slapped out into reality by him assaulting her. This high school boy. He slapped her and she fell off on the bed. I told you to dance with Mike, so you better dance with him. Realizing he was serious and feeling scared, she started to cry. Now get up and dance with Mike. Pookie pulled her by the arm, twisting it around and handing her over to Mike like a Raggedy Ann doll. Mike stood up and came towards her, licking his lips like a hungry predator. My girl, you should have run. He started trying to slow grind dance with her. The closer he came, the more she kept backing up and couldn't stop crying, which seemed to be irritating Pookie. I can't believe, or she couldn't believe, that he just slapped her and was making her dance with his disgusting friend. She literally said disgusting friend, although. Oh, what you say, Marvin Gaye? So Marvin Gaye is playing. How old is Pookie? Again, I have to confirm. Y'all already know. I did some preliminary, some soft research. You understand? Some soft research. In the picture here, this is his father, Tyrone. The father is Tyrone Sr., Tyrone Gibson Sr. So I'm not sure that this particular person is, but her story, Tyrese's pain also comes from the experience between his mother and father. That's why the father is here. Now, we have to confirm that Pookie is indeed, because I think they did change the names in the story. So Pookie is the father. We have to confirm that. But like I said, this would have to have been early 70s. Let me see. Let me see what song did she say she was dancing to? The song was What's Going On. Let me see when What's Going On was recorded. This has to be early 70s. 1971. So right, like I said, it got to be early 70s because she says that she was born in 57. So if she's a freshman in 57, this has to be, 70, 71, them with it. So yeah, that's accurate. Let's continue. So he's playing the Marvin Gaye, they're dancing, and then he's like, dancing with my nasty friend. She was like, nah, and then he slapped her, wadam. You know what I mean? So let's continue. Just inappropriate all the way around. But there was all these red flags that I understand that because of her injury, she isn't able to see, to really sense her own danger. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what happens sometimes. People are overly trusting in situations where, already he was giving you the vibe like, this is not that type of party. You know what I mean? But let's continue. Where are we? Okay, so Mike was licking his lip like a hungry predator. He started to try to slow grind with her. The closer he came, the more she kept backing up, and she couldn't stop crying, which seemed to irritate Pookie. And then he slapped her and was making her dance with him. What's wrong with Pookie? And why is he? And why is he acting like this? She wondered. Suddenly, she felt intense pain across her back. She fell to her knees and looked up. Pookie had a clear plastic hanger in his hand. He started. That's some real Mommy Dearest vibes, bro. He started beating her with the coat hanger across her back, arms, face, and legs. She screamed and begged him to stop hitting her. She felt like a child being scolded and punished by a parent. I told you to dance with Mike, he yelled. When I tell you to do something, you better do it. So the honeymoon is over, bro. Okay? The honeymoon is over. Pookie kept on hitting her with the hammer and she begged him to stop as she tried to block the blows that hurt her hands very badly. Get up and get on the bed, he shouted. You are gonna, warning, okay? You are gonna lay with him since you wouldn't dance with him. Come on over here, Mike, and get some of this. So no, Pookie did not love her. Yeah, Pookie's very advanced. That he don't sound like a junior in high school unless he got left back a few times. You know what I mean? So Pookie now is about to violate this young girl by forcing her to be with his friend. Okay. I'm giving you the update now. So come on over, where am I? On her mic and get you some of this. Pookie pulled his pants off as he's no Pookie he undressed her as she kicked and screamed. He raised the coat hanger over her and told her to stop screaming or he would hit her again. She stopped screaming. Mike eagerly walked over to her. So this is the second time that this young girl is getting violated, according to her narrative. So again, what we're experiencing in today's space and time, that pain that she felt traveled down her generational line, and now it's on the album. Um, and it's in the book, right? So this is how this stuff moves. Where are we? Ah, boy. So she says that now here comes Mike. He goes over to her, then he climbs on top of her, and she lays still on the bed in silence with tears streaming down her face as he did his business. That's like a Color Purple scene right there. And when Mike was finished, Pookie had a turn. After Pookie finished, Mike had a turn. So they violated her continually. This is wickedness, okay? Wickedness. She lay on the bed, quiet and motionless on her back. Tears rolled down her face and welled up in her eyes. And when she saw them both starting to put their pants back on, she got up off the bed. She continued to cry with disbelief at what just happened. How could Pookie do this to her? He loves me. So instead of she keeps saying she loves him, she keeps saying that he loves her. That's, I don't know if he told her that or if she assumed that, but now she's conflicted at, as we see, how could this have happened when he loves her, right? So she doesn't have any real picture of what real love is up until this point. She says she put her pants on as she wiped her tears from her eyes, and without saying a word, she walked up the stairs to go home. Thanks for coming over, she heard Pookie say as she reached the top of the stairs. Mike started laughing. Wicked, wicked, wicked picnic them. She let herself out of the front door and headed home. She walked home, oblivious to her surroundings, completely engrossed in thoughts of what was just happened, and cried the entire way. So now her paradise is lost. She can't go around there. Now she's going back to the trouble of her house. It was a little after dark when she arrived. The door was open, so she walked right in. Mother looked at her from the couch as she came to the door. Where your fast behind been? The way she say mother could have been Precious, mama, because mom dukes. She asked as she clutched a cigarette between her lips. She didn't answer. Priscilla didn't answer. She went straight to her room and sat in the closet crying. There's just so much going on in this story. I'll put the link in the box. That's the end of chapter 3. That is the end of chapter 3. I stopped along the way to share my thoughts so that again, she's not a one-off. This is something that happens on a continual basis, unfortunately, in many communities, that young girls find themselves in this position. And even through pressure or social expectation, young boys feel that this is something that is acceptable to do. And what ultimately happens is that sometimes they forget that they were the perpetrators of these crimes, or the perpetrators of these traumatic events. And so they go on in life and things don't work out well, or their sins are revisited, and now they're all shocked and pretending like it wasn't them. You know what I mean? So she is telling the story, but she's also indicting indicting the perpetrators. So the perpetrators could be sitting in today's space and time, and you don't know what they did in their youth or what happened. You understand what I say? And then you feel sorry for people and really don't know that some of what they're experiencing is their own doing. I'm talking about the males in this situation, right? And so we see that it's a cascading effect of Pookie's mother not being home, Pookie's father not being spoken of, therefore he's not getting the guidance that he needs. He's left to his own devices, and he's catered to in such a way that probably he doesn't feel as though the things that he's doing or have done are wrong, right? He's over there drinking wine. He's doing whatever he wants to do. He is unleashed up in there. And at the same time, now he's luring, because the way in which she describes her interaction with Pookie, he led her to believe these things. He watched her. He knew who she was. He knew she didn't have any friends, and he preyed on that. And that's sad and unfortunate. But a lot of young girls get caught up in this, where older guys, they feel like, oh, he's older. I remember back in the day in school, and they think that the older guys is checking for them. Not really. He just know what you don't know. I put the link in the box. Feel free to click and come on and share your thoughts. There's one more chapter in this preview that I'm going to read at another time, and then decide whether or not I'm good or not. The link for this particular book is also on Amazon. So you can definitely, if you want to read it on your own, you can check that out as well. So let me know your thoughts. I know how it is. Some of this stuff brings up stuff. And some of the parents, because they feel helpless, don't pursue justice, even if they knew. What they do is blame the victim, blame like what the mother is doing. Whatever is happening to her, the mother is giving her the impression it's because you're fast. It's because you're loose. She's talking to the 14-year-old. It's because you're all those things, as opposed to the persons who are the predators in the community. So to a certain degree, the males in the community get to indiscriminately violate, in this particular sense, the females, and not be held accountable because it's expected. Boys are being boys, which only works until, it's not your son and it's actually your daughter. It's a very twisted, uh, when you really think about it. Like, the person who is the aggressor in many of these situations is also the person who you don't hold accountable, but the victim is the person who you try to put the oppressor's wrongdoings on. It's and it's not it's across the world. It's wild and crazy. I see everybody quiet, so I might have gave too much here. And that's also true. Growing up Jamaican says, if he had a father, if she had a father at home, he would think twice. He would get his head knocked off for sure. And that's also something else. Uh, in other spaces, I've heard and had discussions that males respond to males. So to your point, if there was someone, a male figure there, although she has male figures because she has brothers, but they're not present, therefore they're not responsive to what's going on to her. If he had the fear of another man step into him, a brother, an uncle, an older brother, then he would have thought twice about how he moved with her. So that's why he kind of lined her up. Oh, you coming from abuse. Remember, what did she want? And she's very, according to her narrative, she's very forthcoming with everything that's happening. So he knows there's nobody there to protect you. So if he exploits her, nothing is gonna happen because ain't nobody protecting you. You understand what I'm saying? And so that is the danger um, in this situation and many situations. Sometimes people are not asking you what's going on with you because they really care. They just really lining you up to see how far they could go with this without being held responsible. So that is actually an excellent point. Anyone else have anything to share? So, like I said, the reason I'm reading this was really just to look into. It was brought to my attention that a well-known actor, this is his mother, and he's having some experiences in his life in present time, and some of which he doesn't understand, and some of which looks like it's out of the blue. And I surmise that possibly it's this karmic cyclical revisiting of some things that happened in his family line. And lo and behold, surprise, surprise, it's right here. And you can see it if you understand how these things come back, you know? And so it is sad, but again, it is also, it's like it's the dark tunnel, but there's also a light at the end of the tunnel if you're willing to move through. So I don't see anybody coming to the microphone. I'm used to talking to myself on some of these topics, so it's all good. Um, yeah. So with that said, I'm going to wind down, and I pray everybody have a blessed night. For those like, Amuna, where Marcus there? Where Bob Marley coat paper there? Sometimes I gotta give stuff a little bit of a break, a little bit of a breather. And I needed to give Marcus a breather. And I definitely needed to give the Bob Marley series a breather. Because, it was a lot. It was a lot. So, again, with that said, I'm going to go ahead and wind down. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Feel free to put your thoughts in the description or underneath this video. And we'll talk again next time. Everybody have a blessed day.